It is a great honor to welcome you to this half-day dissemination meeting on the Critical Minerals and Land Use Governance in Zambia project. On behalf of the Center for Environment and Justice, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude for your presence today. This meeting is a significant step toward fostering meaningful dialogue and advancing the governance of critical minerals and land use in Zambia. Firstly, I would like to express our deepest appreciation to our partners who have made this project and today's event possible. A special thanks goes to Climate Compatible Group, whose invaluable support through the Southern Partner Fund has been instrumental in driving this initiative forward. The partnership between CCG and Center for Environment and Justice has enabled us to deepen our understanding of the critical minerals sector and the pressing need for more robust governance mechanisms in Zambia. Land governance in Zambia remains an area of complex, multifaceted challenges. The rapid expansion of the extractive industry, especially the mining sector, has placed increasing pressure on our land and natural resources. Critical minerals such as copper, cobalt, and manganese are vital to both Zambia's economic development and the global transition to clean energy. However, this immense potential is accompanied by significant governance challenges, including weak land tenure systems, inadequate policy frameworks, and the marginalization of local communities in land-based investments. Over the years, we have witnessed how mining activities have sometimes led to land disputes, displacements, environmental degradation, and erosion of local community rights. This situation calls for urgent attention, stronger policies, and inclusive governance mechanisms that ensure the interests of vulnerable communities are safeguarded.
We are a priority-driven research program. We're based in the UK and funded by UK aid. But our aim is to support investment and research into issues around sustainable energy, transport systems, whole systems design, infrastructure, and also critical minerals. So we started out in 2020 as a £38 million project funded by UK aid. And then in June 2024, we got the good news that we had an uplift of an additional 57 million to take us to 2030. And currently we work in Zambia, Kenya, Ghana, Malawi, India, Nepal, Laos, and Vietnam. We've been working in Zambia since 2022. So we work with UNZA, in particular Dr. Kabwe and Mr. Clement, who unfortunately can't be here today, but they are the key points of contact if you want to work with CCG in Zambia. Critical Minerals Land Use Governance, or CMLUZ for short, is a 9-month seed project, so it was a fairly small project just to kind of get us started. It's in between CCG, CJ, and CCA, Dr. Lynette. It's an exploratory project, so we wanted to explore the intersection between land use and critical minerals, and this is obviously a highly topical area given the 3 million metric tons of copper strategy and aims to diversify the mineral portfolio in Zambia. But this kind of intersection between land and minerals has been under-researched, but we think it's really important given the speed and scale of critical minerals demand. So obviously this gives rise to economic opportunities, but at the same time highlights a range of kind of social and environmental tensions. It's also incredibly relevant to the concept of just transition, so the idea that we want to ensure transition to renewable energy is globally inclusive. So what we wanted to do in this project in particular was, first of all, evaluate the policy and legislation, so look at the framework that exists in both critical minerals and land, and also any kind of intersections, understand what the key policies and legislations are, who are the key governance actors and the targets of the interventions, whilst also understanding how the coordination works between different institutions. This was very important because a previous project and also anecdotal evidence suggests that there may be inconsistency and ambiguity in the legal framework. And from the kind of justice side, we also wanted to understand the impact on vulnerable or marginalised rural communities. So understanding whether the policy and legal framework accounts for issues such as benefit sharing, fair displacement, compensation, and finally, in doing this research, we wanted to identify some policy recommendations to ensure transparent, effective and equitable land use governance in the future.
There's need for a comprehensive review and reform of the key legislation. We need to make it more responsive, and we need to ensure that some of what was included in the policy is incorporated into the legislation. Because as I said, the land policy has some very good things, and those, once incorporated into law, will go a long way in addressing some of these issues that we have encountered. And then we see that because of the multiplicity of legislation, there's need to consolidate that so that it's easy to navigate the process. Not that you have to go to this law. Even for lawyers, you look at this act, you go and look at that act and that whatever. But if there's a consolidation, it makes life so much easier. And in that way, we can also find that we unify the land administration and the alienation process. Then we recommend that functions of the multiple institutions that are responsible for land alienation and the land delivery system be streamlined. Then we find that it's important to specify a mechanism through which compensation for affected people and displaced communities can be redressed, where all these the issues can be resolved. Of course, we find that there's need to accelerate determination of the extent of the statutory and customary land, and we know that something is already being done by government. That audit I referred to earlier. So if that can be accelerated, all the better. And then there's need to enhance or strengthen recognition of the protection of customary land rights. And finally, it's important to establish a comprehensive, formal and equitable benefit sharing mechanism that is not just standing alone, but it is anchored in bespoke legislation, because then it will have force.
In terms of the next step, CEJ and CCG are currently working on a policy brief, which shall be shared through the mailing list with the stakeholders, including those that we engaged during the interview processes and all. And then we are also trying to focus on an academic journal article. The reason is simple. When Dr. Lynette was conducting the research, one of the key issues is that you have limited information, or if at all you find it, in most cases it's in gray areas. So it would take someone like a legal expert like Dr. Lynette, who knows where this is sitting and where that is sitting. But if it was me to do this research on land and policies and whatever, I would have struggled to bring out the issues she brought out. But because she's a lawyer, she has knowledge, she would know where to get those. So we are saying if this can also be a step to contribute to the knowledge pool, CJ and CCG, through support from the University College London, we would try to work on an academic paper, and this also shall be shared. In terms of outreach, either through this partnership or a CEJ, I think we continue working on land issues. We have partners like Zambia Land Alliance, CTPD to some extent, also they do work on issues to do with land. Caritas is here. So these are some of the platforms where we will keep on sharing some of these policy advocacy issues. From your point of view, from what you have heard from Dr. Lynette's presentation, from some of the key issues that we are trying to get from the research and what the community are saying, what are some of the best ways you feel policy recommendations for such an issue should be captured or tailored for government audience? Have we tried our level best, or how do you feel we can do this collectively as a unit to make sure that this policy brief should not leave out any stone unturned? Any observations, any contributions, any discussion, thoughts?
The land audit project started the last year, so it's a 3 years project, and now we're entering the second year. And this is when we are starting with the piloting of the 20+3 pilot audit. We already carried one in Serenge for the specific setting on farm lots. Now we are starting with Chibombo on the peri-urban area and Lusaka for the area setting, and then we will be starting with the 20 districts, or 2 districts per province. And so basically, to give you a background, so the first year was focusing on national scale products. So you are mentioning the state land mapping, so we work on the state land mapping on the depth of the map of the state land. So we have some of the first findings that were already submitted to the Ministry of Lands, and they should be released soon. We work also on the land use, land cover maps, etc. at the national level. So this will be, of course, as you mentioned rightly, this is a pilot. So we are going to cover 23 districts out of the 160.
But I wanted to comment on where the land policy is saying 6% of land is occupied by customary land tenure and 94 as in the land policy. I think here the powers that be are being economical, because in the state of things now, it's very, very easy for the government to calculate how much land has been collected. And somehow must be economical with the truth. So I think the government, it's just a pressing of a button to know how much extent of land has been put to state land. So I think there is need to probe further to know, because the Surveyor General must be able, at the press of a button, to know how much land is entitled. And further to that, I feel like as Zambians, we are very much focusing on economic rights. We are foregoing environmental rights and social and cultural rights. We are only focusing on economic rights. And I think there is no economical benefit which disregards social and cultural rights. So in this regard, I would urge to see how compatible or beneficial cultural, social, and environmental rights can be put in this submission.
Recommendations. One of them has already been mentioned. It's the Minerals Regulation Act of 2024, which was passed. I think it would be important to include it there. And you also mentioned the National Minerals Development Policy. I know there are some provisions there that you can talk to inform your study. There's also the Forest Act of 2015, which is actually good for this kind of study in terms of mining activities. And then you talked about displacement, and displacement, and you mentioned the Office of the Vice President. We have a resettlement policy in place, but I think where the biggest problem has been is that it falls under the Office of the Vice President, the same as DMMU. But when you look at that, I think there's a clear conflict there, because DMMU is well funded by the government, and issues to do with the displacement or resettlement, it's under the Office of the Vice President, which is not very well funded. So you find that most of it just goes under. So that conflict has to be addressed, and it has been the source of most of our problems when it comes to land-related conflicts coming as a result of mining investment. So that gap should also be addressed, and probably make a strong recommendation to that effect, because most of our problems in that area emanate from that conflict between the two units.
There is a component under the Urban and Regional Planning Act which allows for planning within a customary area with what are called planning agreements. So I wanted to find out whether in your research this was covered, because what's currently happening is there is a provision to plan within a customary area. There's information that the traditional establishment has concerning minerals and what rights have been given and what not, but these are not, it's hard to make these agreements or get these signed, and maybe that could also be a hindrance when it comes to the issue of land governance, because there is a provision in the law for this to happen, but it's not happening because of resistance for reasons that maybe could be found out with further research.
I think from our engagement, CTPD with Zambia Land Alliance, I think one of the things we observed that were coming out was the issue of chiefs misusing the concept, the consent. So if an investor goes, you find that this particular chief would demand huge sums of money, right? And they are overshadowed by that kind of sometimes gifts. In fact, in one of the provinces, a particular chief was even given a brand new vehicle. So all of those distort their judgment, and they normally tend not to consider their community members. So maybe we still need to have a way of dealing or defining what that consent would look like. I think I like one of the things he pointed out. If we can be having maybe government officials going alongside the investor to see a particular chief, maybe that could enhance transparency, so that these chiefs are not just abusing the privilege that they have of giving consent. But also with regards, I think one of the things we discussed was the community agreements. Doc, again, I think from your legal knowledge, I know Uganda, I think they have a similar arrangement in their mining sector, one of their laws that govern the mining sector. Maybe it would be good to just look at it further to see how it works in Uganda and how it has been so far, whether that's something that we can also recommend for Zambia for consideration. I think just those two. Otherwise, I think most of the issues align with most of the things we've been finding in our work.
One of the things that should really come out. I had the opportunity to look into the Environmental Act, the Environment Act, and one of the things that stand out there is that mining in protected areas is permitted. So, having done a research such as this, do we still want it to sit the way it is sitting in the law, where mines can come and still mine in national parks, in wetlands, and just other protected areas? So I just feel maybe we can look into that and add it to our recommendations.
For our stakeholders that have left your office, I know all of us have left our offices, we are grateful. Mr. Karika, on behalf of the Serenje community, please send our regards that we are grateful for coming. Unless if we've lied that this is what is happening in Serenje, so your presence here is also a validation to say if we've lied, then these people deserve to know the truth. But otherwise, we are grateful for your support. We'll keep on calling, and it's not just CEJ. There are so many institutions in here that would like to come to Serenje. Please, when they do so, welcome them and work with them, because we are all striving for development.